Hello everyone, I'm Brior and welcome back to Good Game Empire. Thanks for clicking on this video. I know food production isn't necessarily one of the most exciting aspects of the game, but it could well be the most important. The amount of food you produce will determine how many troops you can reliably feed, which in turn will either help or hinder you when it comes time to participate in any of Good Game Empire's in-game events. Some players will tell you that it isn't necessary to produce a lot of food if you're able to collect it from attacking NPCs and other players. I disagree, because you can't loot any resources while you're offline, and therefore even if you dedicate your entire day to looting, your troops are still going to starve overnight. If you're in a solid alliance, you'll be collecting free troops all the time from alliance event rewards, so it's time to learn how to feed them. Maximizing your food production will allow you to store thousands of troops 24/7 in your castles, meaning that you can crush your opponents both on the attack and on the defense. More importantly, in today's event-driven game, you'll have the troops necessary to destroy a greater number of NPC and invader camps. In this video, I'll share with you the various means and methods by which I'm about to substantially increase the food production in one of my outposts. A few months ago, I received a message from an audience member who was impressed by the amount of food I was producing in this outpost. He wanted me to make a video about it. How much am I producing? Ironically, this outpost is my lowest producer, coming in at a lousy 6,500 units per hour. I'm sure many of my alliance members, and even some of my viewers, have outposts that produce double to triple that amount. I've neglected this outpost for the longest time because for some reason I've never stored attackers here. I don't visit it often, it feels out of the way, and until now, it's been last on my list of priorities. But that stops here. In fact, from now on you should think of this video as Extreme Makeover Outpost Edition. That is a very weird reference for me to make. Anyways, before we go any further, let's review the basics because I have done a few things right when it comes to this outpost. This outpost is what's known as a superfood outpost, or an F8. I drove out to the Empire countryside to grab this screenshot, which I'll use to explain the different types of outposts. Chances are you know about them already, but humor me for just a moment. An outpost that looks like this is considered a stone outpost because the stone icon is located on the left, signifying that it is the primary resource at this location. The quarries inside this outpost are large, and will provide room for 6 stone production buildings to work at a 100% workload. You can build as many stone production buildings as you have room for, but after the 6th one, they will start to produce less and less. The law of diminishing returns is also true for wood production buildings, and most importantly for food production buildings. That's why you should capture outposts with the largest fields. They will support the greatest number of granaries, and thus provide the highest food production. All stone and wood outposts provide for 2 granaries at a 100% workload. A regular food outpost provides for 6 granaries at that workload, and a superfood outpost provides for 8 granaries at that workload. If you intend to be playing the game for a long time, and using the same outpost all the way up through level 70, you owe it to yourself to pick up a superfood outpost. As some of you seem to remember from a previous video, I actually discarded my first account in Empire, which had almost reached what was then the level cap, to begin again at the edge of the world map where I could capture the 3 superfood outposts I have now. That was probably the best decision I could have made at the time. If you're stuck with bad outposts, another solution would be to join an alliance that has inactive members with property available for you to take. You can use my immolation technique, which I discussed in the Quick Tips number 2 video, to make sure no buildings are turned to rubble when you capture another player's outpost. Have a suitable outpost already? Excellent, let's move on. If you peek inside your own castle, you can click on one of your production buildings, and then click on the blue letter I icon in the lower left corner of your screen. The icon appears the same as, but is different from, the blue letter I icon in the command wheel that appears above the building. The window in the lower left corner will tell you about the building's basic production, workload, and productivity, and also the number of units it produces per hour. Whether you have a superfood outpost or not, I would recommend constructing at least 15 granaries, and we'll talk about why that is in a moment. We've now discussed workload, but what can we do to increase the basic production of this building? There's an obvious answer and a less obvious answer, but both are very straightforward and effective. The obvious answer is to upgrade the building, which will require some resources. I've collected lots of resources for the purposes of filming this video, so please enjoy this time lapse of me performing lots of upgrades. Due to recent changes to the game, granaries don't require as many kingdom resources, but I did have to loot the nomad substantially to get the stone and wood I needed. Be patient and be persistent, and you will be rewarded. I find that, in the struggle to be continuously upgrading the Hall of Legends, sometimes players ignore their granaries. Do yourself a favor and pay them attention from time to time. You will need the Architect to be present if you want your granaries above level 20, but by that point you should have a lot of food production going on in any castle you're working with. The other way to increase basic food production is to use base food production build items. I talked about these extensively in my video dedicated to build items, but that was made back before players had to spend money or rubies to get them. The developer was quick to realize how overpowered these build items were, and thus removed them from the game for quite some time. They were later reintroduced, but only in ruby offers and special promotions. I had been able to construct a few using regular resources in the first place, and I thought that was the end of it. However, in a recent change, Good Game Studios has made an extremely limited number available to players via the con component of the Nomad Invasion. In my experience, this component is exclusively for established players who are already up to date on their equipment. If you're an advanced player with the potential to succeed at this event, keep your eye out for them because they make for great prizes. For most players, though, it's a different story. But, while you probably won't be able to afford or earn base production build items, you can and should still construct the weaker production build items. So what's the difference, you ask? Base production build items are applied before public order is taken into consideration. The decorative items in your castle will make them more powerful. So powerful, in fact, that they will boost your overall production by several hundred units per hour easily. Production build items are applied after public order, and thus give flat bonuses. These flat bonuses are decidedly less exciting, but still worthwhile to invest in, at least in my opinion. And now we've come to the reason why it's important for you to have at least 15 granaries in each of your castles. You can have up to 15 build items. This means that even if your last granary itself produces almost nothing, you can add a build item to it, which will give you 200 extra units of food per hour. You can think of it as keeping a granary around just to provide a slot for you to use your build item. I have heard, but have not been able to confirm, that the two types of food production build items are counted separately. If true, this would mean that you could have 15 of each for a total of 30 in one castle, so theoretically there might soon be a justification for more powerful players to have more than 15 granaries. I'm skeptical of this claim, but I'm not in a position where I can check that, so if you find out, let me know in the comments. I've spent time during the past few days constructing build items, so let's go ahead now and apply them to some of the granaries in this castle. By this point in the video, you've probably already noticed the Overseer icon above all of my granaries. If you've watched some of my other videos, you might remember that the Food Overseer was number 1 on my list of best ruby purchases. I currently have 2 weeks left on this Overseer's rental period, and I'll be purchasing more time at a later date. The Food Overseer is truly a great purchase for all types of players. Level 70s because they can obtain big armies, and lower level players too, because at that stage in the game, there's no way to keep up just by looting. Now that I've decided to perform upgrades at this outpost, it's a good idea to keep attackers permanently stationed there. Using this outpost as my primary base of operations means the resources I pillage will be brought here automatically, and there will be no need for me to send small quantities of them between my castle using market barrows. Storing hungry attackers here also provides even more of an incentive to increase food production. Let's head to the rear of my castle for 2 extremely important upgrades that for some reason I had forgotten about until now. The flour mill is obviously quite important for food production, and upgrading it twice will give me a 20% boost in this castle. I've upgraded my other flour mills already, but perhaps I didn't visit this castle enough to notice it earlier on. I guess that's good news because it makes for a better video. Upgrading the flour mill does require a considerable amount of resources, but thanks to the magic of video editing, I can make it look easy. Now that we've come to the back of my outpost, I'm noticing a number of buildings that could be demolished to make space for more decorative items. Since I loot all of the stone and wood I need from NPC targets, I haven't left any wood production buildings in this outpost. That means I have absolutely no reason to keep this sawmill in my castle. Let's demolish it now. I can also remove some or all of these guardhouses, and I can demolish these dwellings too. As you likely know, dwellings contribute negatively to public order, so demolishing them should really help my food production. This extra space will be filled with cool decorative items in time, but for now I'll have to use gardens. If you're wondering how much of a production boost I get from my decorative items in this castle, that figure would now be slightly higher than 298%. Let's return to my main castle and visit the research tower to see some of the things I've already done to increase my food production. I'll show you what the research tower used to look like now, using a clip from one of my older videos. Some might describe this appearance as logical or easy to understand, while others might use words such as organized or intuitive. Apparently, Good Game Studios decided we would be better off with this. And if this doesn't look too bad to you, if it sounds like I'm complaining for no reason, wait until you see the other tabs. In the basic research section, you will find an entry called Plows. Researching it increases the food production in your main castle, so it won't have any effect on my outpost, but it's good to perform nevertheless. Since it's basic research, designed for low-level players to perform, the effect is obviously pretty small, but every bit helps. For higher-level players, an entry called 3-Field Crop Rotation appears as part of the Economic Research tree. Where is the Economic Research tree? Good question. It's on the Advanced Research tab, but you actually have to drag the panel over or zoom out extensively to be able to see it. I would bet that there are players in the game who don't know that any of these options for research exist. Anyways, this is one of the things you want to prioritize when you are completing your research, but I imagine most level 70 players will have already finished this from way back in the day when they could actually find it. It's also worth taking a look at the VIP mode panel, since VIP mode can seriously contribute to the amount of food you produce. Thanks to the seasonal events, the Mercenary Post, and the Wheel of Fortune, I'm able to keep my VIP mode active without spending rubies. There are members of my alliance who have over a year of VIP mode that they've accumulated just by participating in events. With this attack against a watchtower in Barramond, I shall assume the rank of Weapon Master, which shall temporarily increase my food production in the Great Kingdom by 20%. All of these upgrades are well and good, but I'd like to really increase my food production in this video, and that means making a purchase I've been saving up to make for a long while. You probably already know that the symbol on your coat of arms can provide a bonus in the game. One of these bonuses is increasing the food production across all of your castles. In order to obtain a particular symbol, you must first unlock it by collecting achievement points in the game, and then you must either spend coins or rubies to make it yours. I have almost enough achievement points to unlock the sun symbol, which provides a 30% bonus to food production. I have been told that purchasing this symbol requires almost 200,000 rubies, and so I've been working hard to collect that amount for the past few months. In order to grab those last achievement points, I will temporarily boost the production of wood in my main castle, and thus satisfy the requirements for levels 9 and 10 of the achievement building material. But I actually won't, and that's because yesterday I discovered how deceptive the food production formula can be. Let's run a quick experiment. In this experiment, I'm going to make use of the fish symbol, which is the first and cheapest symbol that provides extra food production. According to the text here, the symbol will provide a 4% boost to food production, but I'm about to show you why you shouldn't take that at face value. The box on the top shows my food production in sands without that symbol applied. The box on the bottom shows my food production in sands with that symbol applied. Here's my question. Does anything seem funny to you? That's right, what's pictured is nowhere near the advertised 4% boost. Let's multiply the original food production value by 1.04 to get an expected value of 8,593, which is far larger than the actual value with the symbol applied. Now let's figure out how much of a boost I'm actually getting by running some calculations in the reverse direction. The actual food production value, with the symbol applied, divided by the original food production value, reveals that the symbol is actually giving us only a boost of 0.7%. 0.7%. I probably sat for an hour yesterday thinking about why this might be. Obviously, there are a lot of factors in the game that affect food production, and we've talked about most of them in this video. My first conclusion was that the coat of arms symbol is applied to the food production value before some of those other factors. In other words, what we're seeing here is a 4% bonus, just not on the entire original food production value. But I don't think so, because the commutative law exists. If you don't remember from math class, the commutative law says that the order in which things get multiplied or added doesn't matter. 10 times 3 times 5 is the same thing as 5 times 10 times 3. You can even add parentheses into the formula and it won't change anything. The commutative law also applies for addition, but it doesn't apply for addition and multiplication in the same equation. So then I started to perhaps think that that could be it. Are there any significant bonuses out there which are additive in nature? In other words, provide a flat boost rather than a percentage change? Public order is done by multiplication. So are gallantry titles, the hunting lodge, building workload, the food overseer, advanced research, the flour mill, VIP mode, and pretty much all the rest. There are only 3 factors which I can think of that use addition: build items, the basic research which I showed you earlier, and the granaries themselves. There are no build items in this castle, so we can rule that one out. The basic plows research only applies to the main castle, so we can rule that one out too. It wouldn't make sense that the coat of arms symbol could be applied to some of my granaries, but not all. You might think that the discrepancy has something to do with resource villages, but I've also tested everything in green, and things just don't add up. The bottom line is thus either A, I'm missing something that's obvious to all of you, B, there's a bug or error in the food production formula that's devaluing the coat of arms symbols, or C, the food production formula is deceptive on purpose. I've reached out to the developer about this issue, but have so far received no response. I would recommend not purchasing any coat of arms symbols for rubies until we've found out why they don't provide the advertised effect. If a legitimate reason for this exists, the coat of arms symbols are worth nowhere near their cost and shouldn't be bought anyways. This is a big letdown for me because I wanted to make a video in which I could double the food production in my outpost, and the coat of arms symbol is going to be a big part of that. I still want to spend in this video the rubies I have saved, and it has come to my attention that my bakeries could use some upgrades. Upgrading my bakeries will not increase my food production, but it will reduce my troops' food consumption, which is essentially the same thing. The bakery is slightly too expensive for my tastes, so I'll use an old trick to reduce its price. Let's jump into the Storm Island solely for the purpose of constructing a level 1 bakery using regular resources. That will trigger a bakery upgrade discount offer to appear, which I'll now use to upgrade all of my bakeries in my actual castles. I haven't upgraded any of my bakeries since I first bought rubies several years ago, and at that time my account was probably quite pitiful. It's funny to think about how far I've come, and how big of a role this channel has played in my development. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that's all I can do to upgrade my food production at this outpost at this time. Let's go ahead and take a look at how much I've been able to improve it by. There we go. I'll put up the numbers on the screen now, showing how much it has been improved by. I record my audio for these videos before I actually film them, so I actually don't know right now, but I'm sure it will be on the screen. Those are all the tips I had for you, but it's a complicated subject, so if you have more tips and tricks of your own, do feel free to share them in the comments. And that's the end of this video. You made it all the way to the end. It was 18 minutes long, so thank you for that. If you enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing to the channel or recommending the channel to your friends or alliance mates. Hopefully it will help them get better, and also it will help me. Thanks very much for watching. I've been Brior, and I will see you again in the next video.